share them with you. You should have a protractor and something to write with, something to write on. I recommend a highlighter, pens, pencils, all of this good stuff. And most importantly, the little tracing paper or patty paper as it is. Now go ahead and set your paper up in this fashion if you're going to follow along with some notes. Highly recommend it. E, somewhere over here, and then, about that far away should be point A. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate the A point around E, which is the center of the rotation, by 75 degrees. And just a reminder, 75 degrees, since it's positive, means we're going to rotate to counterclockwise, CCW. Well, the easiest way to do this, or the direct way to do this, and I'm going to use a pencil for this part because it should technically be stuff that you can erase, is I'm going to draw a ray from E through A, and it's just got to be long enough that I can use my protractor. It's got these measuring amounts and these distances on the protractor, and I want to be able to use those in order to effectively perform the rotation. Since I'm using the 75 degrees here, then my protractor, I'm going to center the circle of the protractor on E, and then I'm going to twist the protractor like the direction of my fingers, my right hand fingers curling, because that is counterclockwise. And my protractor needs to go in that direction so that when I rotate and I use the measuring angles on the protractor, it'll go towards a counterclockwise rotation. So, center of the protractor on E, the ray that goes through point A is lined up with 0 degrees on the protractor. And now I'm going to make a mark at 75 degrees. So starting at 0, that'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Turns out 75 is somewhere between the middle of 70 to 80, or their counterparts in between 100 and 110, specifically right here. So 80, 70, and 80, halfway between would be this mark at the 5 between those two angles. And now I'm going to make a ray that goes from E through my mark. This is a 75-degree angle. That's going to be the angle of rotation. Rotations are going to preserve distance, but they're going to go from where A is counterclockwise over to this other line because that's an amount of 75 degrees. And then this is where the tracing paper happens. Well, I'll use tracing paper. You could also use the ruler and measure it. I'm going to measure point E, might as well label it. Put a dot on point A, might as well label that A. And then because it's a rotation, we're literally going to rotate the tracing paper. And so you should see A start to travel across the page. And then once A lands on the ray, that's the rotation. So make a really dark mark. Sometimes it helps to put the dot on the other side of the tracing paper so that when you flip back, the tracing paper will go there. Or I've even actually pressed so hard I punctured a hole in the paper. There you go. This is A prime, where A was, I guess over here, where A was to where A has rotated to A prime over there. I have another example if you want to try it. The other example is rotating the same point, but this time the angle is negative because that means we're going to rotate this way or clockwise. Turns out negative, like a clock, and counterclockwise, not like a clock, is positive. Okay, so let's do that. 80 degrees means I'm going to set my protractor up. And if you know how to do this, or you think you know how, you should actually skip forward 2 minutes, right? Skip forward in the video. Don't listen to me say it. Just go ahead and see if you can do it yourself and then come back. And if both of our answers line up, well done. Okay, so you haven't paused it. You're still watching. That sounds good. I've got my protractor centered on E. I've got my 0 degrees of the protractor lined up on the ray that it created. But this time my protractor is actually facing down towards the right. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and then right here at 80. This is where I'm going to make my mark and draw my ray, since this is creating the angle that is 80 degrees. But because we're rotating like a clock, this is actually a negative degree rotation. Come back to the tracing paper. It's already been used. You could recreate it if you want to, but you don't have to because it's already set up. And we're just going to do the rotation clockwise now. Rotate, 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 keeping E, the center of the rotation, where it is. Very important to mark that. And then when you're done, A will rotate to a brand new location. There it is, A. It gets 2 apostrophes or primes because it's in a totally brand new location. There you have it, how to rotate a point. What if you have to rotate a shape? And so this is where maybe like it elevates, but it doesn't elevate in the math concept. Surprise, you skipped forward in the video. Now we're going to rotate shapes. So let's get into it. Start by creating the angle. And it doesn't matter what angle you pick, but I am going to recommend that you think about the degrees first, how it's positive, and how that means we're going to rotate counterclockwise. And if we're going to rotate counterclockwise, I want to make sure my markings, my drawings are not going to overlap whatever's here. So maybe the right thing to do is actually draw my line that is my angle through the back, right through CL. Okay, there it is, my ray CL. And then using the protractor, measure a 120-degree angle, but it has to go, to the left because it has to go counterclockwise, CCW. So center of the protractor on C, line up the ray and the 0 of the protractor here, and then we're going to make a mark at 120 degrees. Once we've made our mark at 120 degrees, then it's remove the protractor and draw the straight line, the ray that goes through that mark. Be as accurate as you can be out there. That is a 120-degree angle, and it's positive because of the direction that we're rotating. So now we're going to get fresh tracing paper. We're going to trace point C and then the triangle GPL. So point C, you might as well label. Point G, point P, and point L. And I'm going to use these points, right? I didn't actually trace the entire triangle. I just traced the dots that represent the corners, the vertices of the triangle. And then we'll use the protractor to fill in the rest. Now, rotation. So rotating to the left, here it is. We're going to start rotating 120 degrees. There we go. It's going to eventually wind up and land on the, well, it's L, right? L has to land on L prime. So we're in this dot, L gets to the other angle, then we'll stop rotating. Keep rotating, keep rotating, keep rotating, and there it is. L has now landed on the other ray. It's made a travel of 120 degrees. Now, if you press really hard on the tracing paper, you're going to puncture it, and that's okay. You could also flip the tracing paper over and then trace those dots. But because I did and I punctured it, I've got a lot of actually paper like base underneath the drawing. Clean up your dots, label L prime, G prime, and P prime. And now maybe I'm going to switch to a pen now because we're ready to permanently log it in, record the triangle in the new location. I'll just clean this up. This will finish the video right here for you guys, ending it here. You've seen a demonstration on how to perform a rotation when you don't have a graph. Most of our problems are going to have a graph, but in case they don't, oh boy, make sure that you can actually do the rotation as well. There is a part 2. In part 2, I show you how to find the center of rotation. So please click on that video and stick around. Thanks for watching.